Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Amy Stevens. I'm Chief Exec at Gifted Philanthropy. I think we've got some return visitors, but also some new organisations joining us today, so welcome. We're recording the webinar, so afterwards it'll be available on our website in a few days' time to watch back if you've got colleagues who might want to watch. The process for today, so Jamie and I will go through the presentation and we'll do questions at the end. It's just easier for us to manage. So if you can pop anything as we go along in the Q&A and we'll address that at the end. So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's great to be on here. It's lovely. Always good. Always a pleasure.
Fantastic. So we'll get started. So today we're talking about fundraising auctions. As we've discussed previously on some webinars, particularly if anyone joined the media webinar we did with the ripple effect, we talk about fundraising and publicity and, you know, the effective routes of raising funds. And often people think if you shout about your charity, you will immediately raise money. We know that that's not the case. Publicity is fantastic, but it has to happen at the right time in the right way and be really targeted and done properly. So things you should always consider, and we're talking about the auctions here. So are you at the right stage in your fundraising to deliver a fundraising auction? And that's different for different charities. So if you're looking at a major capital campaign, for example, we would always say, this comes towards the end of the campaign when you're mobilizing more people to become involved and you've done that major gifts work, you've done your targeted work with people. But actually for a charity with an annual fundraising program, this could be part of your annual event every year and something that you use to engage people. So think about where you are in your fundraising and if it's the right time for you. So yeah, don't go too early. What you don't want to do is create donor fatigue and constantly be putting stuff out there and asking for money publicly in terms of getting involved in an auction. And what you don't want to do is risk those larger gifts. So those committed face-to-face asks that we talk about a lot at Gifted in major donor work. You don't want somebody to buy an auction lot for far less than that value and not make the gift. Now, of course, Jamie will talk about later, there's very different sizes of auction that BidAid deliver, and he'll explain a bit about that, but we don't want to risk those larger gifts. Celebrity involvement. Celebrities are great and they bring you press and PR, and some celebs do, you know, really step up and get involved. But again, signing up a celebrity doesn't necessarily mean you'll raise money. Okay, you've got to do it right. And use their skills in the best way. Always consider allowing enough time to plan these kind of things. You know, if you're going to do it properly. And I'll give my opinion on a recent experience working with BidAid and Jamie on how that worked for me and what I had to take into account, given it's not my specialism. So finally, use a specialist. You know, if these kind of things are not what you do day to day, it's highly advisable that you bring somebody else in who does know what they're doing and therefore, you know, really makes your event work as it should and get the best value for you. So our client example, recently we did an auction for the Kennel Club Charitable Trust, which is one of our clients, for our Appeal for Ukraine, which is funding support for dogs displaced by the war in Ukraine. And we were holding this event at Crufts. It was culminating on the final day of Crufts with an online launch 2 weeks before, so people could start to bid. We could put out press and kind of newsletters to our supporters and what have you to get them excited. And then the auction was live during Crufts on our stand and people could come and look at lots and what have you. Really great experience. New relationships were built. So I think, don't just think of these things as your cash value as well. As you can see here, you know, we said we raised £12,000, but it has a much wider impact as well. So we built new relationships. One gentleman who had a winning lot then got in touch afterwards and talked about how he wanted to bring his organisation in and involve them in the charity and get involved. So it has a wider effect. And you know, this individual wasn't known to us previously as a donor. It has a wider effect and it's a great PR opportunity. So particularly at Crufts, the press were interested in what we were doing because it was something a bit different than it's just a charity stand. There was something going on. But there were lots of challenges. So when I was faced with the, having an auction presented to me, I thought, I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. This is not my specialism. But people had started to suggest it, and therefore people were, offering to gift lots. So there was key challenges for me in predominantly a manageable platform. How do these auction platforms work? We certainly don't have one at Gifted. How am I going to manage it and deliver this? What is it going to cost me? Is this tech support going to be hugely expensive, and therefore for a relatively small auction, make it not feasible for delivery? We had to consider securing lots, and most importantly, the right ones. And we'll talk a bit about that and how BidAid supported that. And it was interesting, Jamie, wasn't it, having that conversation about the kind of things that we should put on offer and what you guys could input as well into it so that it appealed to our audience.
Yeah, that's really important. It is all about appealing to audiences, and what you may think may not appeal to your audience, maybe something which would. So I always say about try to go a little bit wider than what you may think on a personal level. And I think that we together managed to achieve that. And you had some great auction lots at that actual.
We did. We had some very niche, but they were fitting for the community that we were pitching to, weren't they?
Exactly. They were really good. They were really good. And you could see from the engagement with people bidding on certain items that they obviously went down well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, something to think of, what lots do we need and the right ones. And then collecting funds, the thought of that is daunting, collecting these bids and, oh gosh, how will this work? So for me, getting some professional support was just absolutely essential. And that's where we were introduced to BidAid and to Jamie and talked through kind of their work. So do you want to introduce the company, Jamie, and just a little bit more about what you guys do?
Yeah, so basically BidAid is a silent auction platform and an all-encompass one-stop shop, really, which can look after your fundraising needs for any sort of auction, be it online, be it hybrid, or being in events. And my background, basically, just a brief overview of that. My background is I'm an Olympic silver medalist, former world champion athlete. And when I got into this business, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best, right? I didn't want to do anything half-rate.
It never leaves you, the competitive.
No, that competitive edge, And we've all been there, and we've all had sort of maybe experiences that you may have been involved in an auction, or you may have been at a charity event, and something hasn't gone quite right. And I had that particular experience with my partner. She put on an event with because unfortunately her mother passed away to cancer. So she put an event on about 10 years ago now. And we brought one of the best fundraising sort of supposedly companies in the industry to this event. And how did I find that person? I pretty much went into Yellow Pages. I'm showing my age now, but pretty much went to the top of Google and, oh, they're going to be good. And we had a pretty bad experience. And from that bad experience, I was very disappointed with what they had to offer and what they actually did for us at that event. And I said to my partner, you know what, I need to do this myself. I said, if this is what it is, if this is the standard of auctions in this game, I thought, well, I'm going to do it myself. And I had a background of doing framing, memorabilia and merchandise. I had an official license for the Welsh Rugby memorabilia, Welsh Rugby, company. So I was already knowing my craft when it comes to framing and distribution for, a really big brand, which is Welsh Rugby in Wales. Obviously, you can tell from I'm from Wales, my accent. And that's how I sort of got into it. So BidAid, like I said, is a one-stop shop which can look after all your fundraising needs, from procurement with auction lots, with our highly sophisticated technology, which I'll show you a bit later on, to experiences, holidays, artwork, etc. So we wanted to have something where if you're an established charity or a fundraising company, but you don't really have that one-stop shop which can hold your hand from start to finish to make things work for you, this is what we are. This is what BidAid is.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's think about some of the things before you get started. What charities need to think about. And we touched on this on the previous slides, but thinking about who your audience actually is critical, isn't it? In working with you in that initial stage, Jamie, and making sure that the auction you put together is right for the people that you're working with.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're going to be doing an auction for, surrounding crafts, you're not going to put a load of cat memorabilia in, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to put sort of pictures of horses in. It's going to be more dog related items and more sort of maybe furry animals, but you want it to be that sort of thing. And it sounds like it's obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people don't think of the obvious,
Yeah. And then when it comes to kind of the bids that your audience will reach and therefore what lots you should have, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you don't want to have a load of lots that are, perhaps tens of thousands if that's not within the capability of your audience. But then I guess you don't want to restrict it as well. So how do you work with clients to kind of balance that?
Yeah, well, what we usually do when people approach us at BidAid, we usually have sort of like a consultation really and say, what is your event? Where is your event? What is your demographic, etc. And once we've established that of who the audience is going to be, we then give them sort of ideas of what that's going to be and what sort of auction lots should be provided within that system. I mean, as I always say to people, for example, if you're a rugby club, you're not going to have a load of football memorabilia. It doesn't make sense, but still have a piece of football memorabilia in it, because not everyone's just going to be a rugby person if it's a rugby event. So it's always thinking slightly outside of the box. I'll give you one prime example. I did an event about 5 or 6 years ago, and we had George Lazenby, who's a famous swimmer who won an Olympic medal, and he was Tarzan in the original Tarzan movies, right? And we got this item, and I thought, is that ever going to sell? We put it in our first auction lot at an event in Cardiff, and some woman came up and she said, "Oh my gosh, George Lazenby. My granddad was a massive fan." And she paid some crazy amount of money, which went to the charity, because she was really keen. So it just shows you, don't think, that best. Just always go slightly outside of that as well,
Yeah, so those off the wall lots can come good sometimes. Yeah.
Can come good. And when it comes to the actual amount of the auction lot, again, I have, for us, we have like always an array. If we're doing a massive dinner and it's a bunch of billionaires in the room, great. You obviously have certain items which is going to please them, but you always got to have the lesser expensive items, because you want to make sure you've got a mixed bag for everyone. It's really important not to just be in one bracket and try and have a varied amount. And if they sell or don't sell, it's not a problem, especially using BidAid, because it's all online anyway.
Yeah. So in terms of the online element, because at Crufts we did purely online and we didn't have an event as such. Yes, people could come and look at the items, but they still just bid online and there wasn't a set event. But how do you kind of do you work with clients to decide, launch it online and then we're having a gala dinner and it finishes at that?
Yeah. So what we normally do is, if it is a gala dinner, for example, they'll tell us the date of the dinner and we'll say, well, why don't you open it a week to 2 weeks before the event and try to get as many people signed up onto the platform as possible. So that will be their job, to go reach out to their target audience. I mean, I'll give you a prime example of one event, and this is a really high, really a big one. We did an event in Monaco a couple of years ago, and the event ended up raising 1.2 million, crazy amount of money, which was amazing for the charity. But we opened it up a week before, and we raised 110,000 euros on the platform. And this is the important bit, with people who didn't even go to the event. So that is brilliant. With somebody from Switzerland and from somebody from Austria, just couldn't make that event, but they wanted to donate, they wanted to bid, they wanted to get involved. So, we always say, you haven't got to have a pre-event auction, but why not? Why not utilize your audience? And maybe some of we say to people, well, if you've got sponsors, utilize the sponsors or audience, etc. So the wider you can get it, the more you can promote it in a clever way, the more, you know, likely you're going to raise money for the charity itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then thinking about tech support as well. So that was definitely a consideration for me. Obviously, there's the tech support of the platform itself. But then we looked at, you know, what do we need to have on our stand at Crufts? And we had a big screen that we kind of put that onto. But something to think about wherever your auction is going to take place, whether purely online or whether you are having an event, how do you then show that at the event? And I believe you guys help with that as well if clients need it as well, right?
Yeah, you know, like I say, we like to hold everyone's hand. You know, we've been in the business long enough to know what people want and what people don't want. I mean, for your particular auction, you did have some of your lots which were actually there on the stand, which is brilliant. I remember you sending me some photographs of that, which I loved. But just to have that, say, 55-inch TV on your stand playing the hub screen, so people could walk past and go, "Oh, what's that?" Because if they hadn't seen the QR code, or if they didn't know what was happening, by utilizing that screen did just make people like, "Oh, what's happening here?" And that could have been a conversation between you and a guest who just so happened to walk by. They like what they saw, and the next thing you know, they end up bidding on something. So yeah, we're always here to hold somebody's hand, and you know, and it's not, it's, we make it very simple for anyone. You know, we don't bombard you with too much information where it gets confusing. No, it's very simple what we do, and very effective.
Yeah, I think you're right. Having that screen there, people particularly at Crufts, like with the scrolling screen, which Jamie will talk us through shortly. Oh, there's a new bid on that one, and people kept coming past and having a look and seeing what was going on with the lot. So it definitely supports kind of the interest in the auction, I think.
100%, yeah.
And then finally, a question we always get asked in fundraising, because it's such a big issue: are there any GDPR considerations? And just to reassure everyone that yes, you're using a third party to support your charity work, but through the contractual arrangement between BidAid and a charity, you are covered under GDPR for kind of the management of data and people placing their bids. And in fact, in the initial bid placing element, it's very little data, isn't it, Jamie? It's an email and a name and a phone number basically to get registered.
That's it. It's that simple for somebody to access the site, get registered. And we're always using people who use our software. We're doing it on your behalf. So for the charity or maybe the organization which is putting it on in the first place. So technically the data is yours, because we're just that go-between company which enables you to raise the funds.
Absolutely. Right, Jamie, I'll pass to you to talk us through a bit of a screen share on this now and how the platform works.
Yes, let me just get this up now. Let's see if I've got it up here now. So can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically this auction software can be utilized for, I'm just going to put for your mobile phone. So I'm just going to show that in the corner of the screen. You can see that there now. This is really predominantly used for your phone, but it can be used on an iPad. It can be used on a computer, whatever you've got access to. But for these purposes, sharing the screen, it makes sense for me to show it on here. So basically, if every charity which we work for, has their own corporate colors, their own branding. I so happen to be an ambassador for Bernardo, so I always use Bernardo's as my charity of choice to show what BidAid does. So this image here can be any image which you want your auction to be. We always want it to be some sort of emotive image which makes people want to bid in the first place. So when they come onto the screen, when they come onto the app, they suddenly go, "Oh, what's this? Oh, this looks important. This looks like something I want to be involved with." So these corporate colors here are obviously Bernardo's. If I click onto the logo of Bernardo's, you get to see some more information. So you can have as much or as little information in this section as you want. When you scroll down, you get met with all the auction items which you've managed to procure, or if we've got to help you in that process, or we have an amalgamation of both. This is a section there. So if I can click on all these different categories here, all these categories can be changed depending on what you have in your auction. So if it was for dogs, it would have dogs there in the category section. But what we really pride ourselves on here at BidAid is we're very individual in our approach and what we've got. So a lot of these auction items, if not all of these auction items, you'd have never have seen before in auction unless you've seen one of ours before. So that makes us very unique in the industry. So I'll show you this one, for example. This is a Spider-Man signed canvas. As you know, he's the creator of Marvel. We're the only company in the world which basically has videos of the product, so you can actually see what it's going to look like on your wall. So if you are bidding online, you can at least get to see what it is. If I click on this button here now, so I'm going to bid 3,000, for example, on this item. It says you're the highest bidder, sends you confetti, makes you feel good that you've bid. Sends me a text message instantly to my mobile phone to say you've bid on that. If I click back onto this now, it goes straight back to the auction. So that's basically how the software sort of works. It's very simple piece of kit, very simple piece of software. Again, you can see, I'm just showing you a couple of other items. This is a Lewis Capaldi item. So you can imagine that, you know, your audience, your guests would be really happy with seeing these sort of items. But let's just say somebody's not interested in bidding on an item. On our site itself, we have a pledge option. So if I click onto the pledge button, you have 3 variety options of pledges here: £100, £500, £1,000, but that could be £10, £20, £50.
Yeah.
Or I could just manually put in £34, for example, and make a pledge. And that money there, 100% of that money then goes to the charity itself.
I think that's a really important thing. I think we had a couple of donations, I think, through our auction, didn't we?
Yeah.
And there were certainly a couple of people who came to the stand to chat about it and said, oh, either there's nothing I fancy, or somebody's kind of gone above my maximum bid there, but they made a gift instead.
Exactly.
Really important.
Exactly, and that is something which is really important. I think, you know, if people are wanting to, you know, not everyone wants to bid on an item. Not everyone fancies memorabilia. Not everyone fancies maybe certain experiences. You know, these are some of the experiences which we do. But you know, if they do or if they don't, we pretty much cover it all. And again, at BidAid, this is where we're very different. We're very unique. Is that, you know, a lot of these auction lots are procured by ourselves, which makes it very, very easy for a charity, because what we get is we do get some charities coming up to us basically saying, oh, we haven't got we haven't got any items to put in the auction, or we've only got 2, or we've only got 3, for example.
Yeah.
And we say, well, we can produce items for you which will, you know, bolster your auction itself. So never feel that you can't do a online auction, hybrid auction, or a real life auction. If you think you can't procure anything, we can manage that for you. And that's where we're very different. And I feel very proud of what we've got.
It was definitely a help for us having flesh out our lots with some other items, for sure. Yeah. And I think one of the things you mentioned, which I really picked up on, and I know that our supporters liked, is so when you place a bid, you get the text to say that's great. If somebody then goes above your bid, outbids you, you get a text message. So we had one of our trustees come over for the charity and was like, he's outbid me, right, I'm going to bid again. And he knew immediately that, you know, that he needed to place another bid if he wanted to win the lot. So it's a really cool tool, part of it, I think, that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to just show you something now, just very quickly. I'm just going to log in on my phone a sec. So I'm just going to log in here and share my screen again. Let me just do this, because this is what we touched upon earlier on, which again is a nice little addition to the text. So this is the hub screen which we spoke about earlier on. So I'm just on my mobile phone here now, and I'm going to bid on this item. Sure. And so I've just placed a bid on that item. Straight away comes on the screen saying my name, that I've bid on that item. And that's where, if you have a in-person event, you know, a big gala ball, and you've got, you know, maybe 200 people to 1,000 people if it's at Grosvenor House Hotel, this screen really comes into its own. You know, you've got the charity logo there, the corporate colors of Bernardo's behind, the countdown timer, all the procurement of all the items throughout the event are scrolling through. And then it goes through another series of screens saying how much time's got left, how much, you know, what the highest bids are. I've just bid on another item there. It's very fast. It sent me a text message straight to my phone. So it's very, very slick. But when they scroll through all of these items, it shows the items up close up and personal. One of the things which I found really important, which to me is like a must really, is the fact that people do want to be able to see the item they're potentially going to bid on. Because if you're going to spend £100 right through to some crazy amount of money on an item, surely that you're going to want to really see that. And that's where that hub screen and the tech works really well. You mentioned earlier on about QR codes. So, you know, we have these at events, so they sit on tables. We can produce these for you. So it's just a series of ones. We just came back from the Cannes Film Festival, here. So they all sit on tables, and they have a URL and a QR code for people to enter the auction itself. So if I was to scan this button here now, scan on here, it's going to show me that dinner. Obviously that event's ended now, but you can see how it sort of all works. So it's very simple system, and it's you know, it's great to do stuff with all different charities.
Brilliant. So back to the slides, just thinking a bit more about supporter engagement, because I know that that's a concern for charities, and you kind of touched upon with the lots. Can we do an auction if we've not got lots of lots? But how do you make sure it's well attended and that you reach in target audience? I mean, we did newsletters and mail shots and then some press as well. But is there any other tips you've got to drive people and get people engaged in an auction?
Yeah, so what I always say when it comes to, you know, a particular auction, say for example you've got a fundraising gala coming up, and you as a charity you may have X amount of thousand people, which, you know, you could send out a newsletter, for example, with that information on, so people can then get directed to the auction itself. That's great. But then the other thing which you need to take into consideration, you could possibly have a title sponsor. Well, let's just say you have a title sponsor, and that person so happens to be really engaged in your charity, be it they may be a local solicitor firm, or it could be, you know, the head of Barclays or whatever, you know, depending on, you know, how big your well, just to send that information out to him or her for them to then send out to their databases, you know, or getting them engaged is another way of getting it out there. Obviously, social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., is always a good way. But you really want to capture people's emotions. So it's not just about, we've got a silent auction, we're doing this. I always find it's really good if you pull on the heartstrings of your audience for whatever, and that's something which comes from you guys. That's really important. So don't just say we've got an auction, say why you've got an auction. Why are you doing it? Why do we need to help? Why do I need to help this charity? And if you can get that message across and then get them to go to the auction, then that works. I mean, you'll have seen this many times yourself, where you go to a charity ball, 500 people, black tie, etc., and they'll have that emotional video, and, you know, where you feel, you know, you're almost crying, you know, at the end of it, and then they'll do the live auction, or then they'll tell you about the silent auction. And that is the key, is to enable your audience to understand why. And if you can get that why, that's when you're going to get what you want to get, and that's raise funds for your charity.
It's the impact, isn't it? Showing what the impact of their gifts and their bids is going to make. Absolutely. And so I think we kind of covered the target audience element previously, but any guidance on how long it should be live for? You know, do people get fed up of it if it's out too long? What's an optimum?
So with my experience, we found about 2 weeks pre-event, a week to 2 weeks beforehand. You may launch it. Like, we've got an auction going on live at the moment now, and it's not until, I think it's like the 6th of June, but it's been online for like 2 weeks before, because that's what they wanted. And we've noticed there's already bids on there. And the reason there's bids on there is because the charity promoted it in the right way.
Yeah.
So my rule of thumb, really, I think a week to 2 weeks is enough. Generally, that would be the general rule. And then what you normally would do is, say the silent auction finishes at 9:30, 9:45, actually at a gala ball, you really announce that that's when it's going to end. You let people know when it's going to end.
Yeah.
And that's the important bit, really. But the lovely part about this, the technology, is it sends you, once you've registered and signed up, it will send you notifications telling you an hour to go before the auction ends, 5 minutes. So you go, oh, it's only 5 minutes. I remember one bit, I'll just tell you this one story, which is really funny. We did an event for the film and TV charity, that one of the first times we ever used the technology, and it got to like 10 o'clock at night. The auction said countdown timer. It said 5, 4, 3, 1 seconds to go. This woman next to me was going, yes, I've won the Tom Hanks Toy Story 4 signed print. I'm so excited. And I looked into the back end of the data and I went, oh, she didn't win. So I went, sorry, somebody's beat you in the last second. And so my staff members were going around the venue trying to find this lady. We couldn't find this particular lady, so we ended up ringing her up. And we said, hi, I can't remember her name. Hi, Stacey, for example. Just to let you know, you've won the Toy Stories 4 signed print by Tom Hanks. Can you make yourself available and come over to the bar? And she said, I'm sorry, I'm not there. I'm at home in my bath. So she was at home in her bath bidding on this Toy Story 4 signed print. And I just thought that was hilarious. And that's where we realize that the game's changed, that you don't need to have a charity event which costs you a lot of money to raise funds now. If you're very clever about utilizing your network and your online presence, you can do these charity auctions which could raise a hell of a lot of money with no outgoings, really. And that's quite an exciting part. The game's changed now, and I'm proud to be part of that game change.
Yeah, it's so interesting what you're saying there about the last minute, which is why we've got this last question on here about the, bidding wars and upping the price, because we had exactly that happen at Crufts, in that no one was bidding on Sunday. And we were like, oh gosh, what's happening? Turns out everyone was waiting till the last minute. And then they all went, and we sold about 4 different lots that didn't even have a bid at that very last minute. So it's really interesting, the psychology of it, and how people kind of think, no, I'm going to hold out and not show my cards yet, isn't it?
And this particular lady, like I said, she was like, yes, it was like she'd won the lottery. She was going, I won the Toy Story. She was so excited. And you should have seen her face when I told her she had lost,
Oh,
and it was just brilliant. It was really good. But yeah, it's exciting, really. And I do implore you to sort of get involved and whatnot, and don't think that, I'll give you a little example. I had somebody approach me last year, the NHS, a small little down the Vale of Glamorgan in Wales, and they said to me, we want to do a little art auction. We've managed to secure all these local artists, and I mean the items were 30 quid, 50 quid, 80 quid, that sort of thing. I don't mean big money. They had about 30, 40 items. They said, can we work with you? And I love that. I'm all about that, So I said, yes, let us help you build the auction site. Let's do it all. And I think they raised something like 2,500. And I was so delighted with that. This local charity did an online auction using local artists, raised this money, which couldn't have happened. They didn't have no event. And they've come to me, and we pretty much wrapped up another auction from them again, raised another 2,500 just recently, like last week it ended. And that's something which couldn't have happened before online software, and it couldn't have happened with, I think, pretty much any other company, because we don't charge any upfront fees. So there are no fees or costs for us to do this for you, to do all that. Yes, paid afterwards, but not upfront. So it's something, again, which I think is really important to me, that we're an all-inclusive platform which can work with small right through to the big charities, and we treat everyone the same.
Absolutely. And I that's one of the points here on the benefits of specialist support. For me, that was a massive thing. When we first met, Jamie, and you were talking through the platform, I thought, oh, here we go. There's going to be going to cost you £2.5 to have the platform set up, and
Yeah.
genuinely, nothing. And that makes it, as exactly as you say, accessible for whether you're a tiny charity or whether you're a massive outfit that, is doing a big gala dinner and what have you. And so important. So for me, the benefits of working with specialist support is it totally took the stress out of the auction for me with the technology and the back office. So as a client, so I was a client of Jamie's representing my client, the charity, you get an admin password. So you can see who's bidding and what's happening and behind the scenes, not just the front facing. And even that element of it was so simple, even adding a new, because we had a couple of lots coming late, didn't we, that we added. To put them on was so simple, and it just really took the stress out of it. Again, no financial processing. So BidAid collected all of the winning bids and then sent us our money over, which is fantastic from our perspective. What I think is really, really important, particularly when you're dealing with money and gifts, is that professional presentation. People, when they log on to something and see it, need to feel trust. And if it doesn't look professional, they don't want to be bidding. Even though you're not putting your bank details in there, it's still transactional almost. So I think it's really important that whatever platform you use, whether it's BidAid or someone else, it has to be professional. Again, another factor, particularly because our auction, we knew it wasn't going to raise, hundreds of thousands, was that it was really low or no cost risk. There was no upfront costs that we had to cover to make this happen. And if lots don't sell, you don't get charged for them. So, it's really low risk. I also liked we had a team approach to the delivery. It wasn't just me trying to make this happen. I was ringing Jamie, asking his advice on, what we put in, what should I price it at, etc. And that really helps when, as we all know, as fundraisers, when you've got events and things going on that you need to deliver, to have a team working with you. And quick mobilization. I was astonished at how quickly from saying, yes, we'll go ahead, let's get a contract in place, to having our site ready to test and get ready. But I guess that, Jamie, is because, you've built the software and it's there to kind of just for you to personalize for each client. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. This is something where, before we had our own software, like I said, our background really was producing items, waiting for doing auctions. I got to see what other sort of platform providers were doing. I could see that it was bits missing. And I thought, no, I really want to get the best platform out there. I want to make it very user-friendly, very easy, very trustworthy, like you said, with corporate colors and branding. And most importantly, I wanted to be able, for the charities we're working with or event organizers, to have a sneak preview and go into the back end so they can see exactly what I see. There's so many silent auction providers out there which don't really show you that detail. And that, again, to me is, I don't think it's right. And I think, it should be exposed. So for me, to have you been able to see when Mr. Smith bid on that item, to see that somebody just outbid somebody in the last second, that's just as exciting for you as it is for me. So yeah, that's what we tried to do. And this quick mobilization at the end, one of the things which we do get is we get people actually on the day of an event saying, oh, we've managed to get 2 new auction lots, can you do it? I've actually been in my black tie at an event, being tapped on the shoulders. I'm not working the event, I've been invited as the Olympic guy, and I'm there plugging down a glass of red wine, and the event organizers tapped me and said, we've managed to get another lot, can you put it in? And I'm like, yes. And I'm there in the background putting it in. Just refresh it all. It's up. Cheers. Bye. I'm going back to my wine and my partner. So it's important. Let's it's important to us. Like if you get items on the day, if you get items 2 days before, let's put them in. Because if that can raise you more funds, then that's great. I mean, I had somebody and I don't tell people to do this, but I had somebody the other month say, "Oh, Jamie, we love what you've said. We want to get involved with you. It's Thursday. Our event's on Saturday." I'm like, can you do it? Yes. And we're there. Saturday, turn up, items, site, built QR codes, printed printed items, bang, done for them, raise money, go home, thanks very much. And that's important. So I don't, if anyone's listening to this, don't ring me on the Thursday and say, can we have it on?
He's not encouraging that, guys. It's just an example.
Be a little bit of time, but what I'm saying is we can do it, and we're always there to help. That's one thing which I get a lot of charities and event organisers saying to us is how easy we are to work with. And then on the front end, we have staff which can turn up at your event at no cost and help you run the silent auction. And I've been noted, it's been noted many times, not once or twice, where people saying to me, oh my God, your staff are amazing and they are brilliant. And I love every one of them. And I feel very lucky to have them sort of in my back pocket to go out front facing, because again, you could work with other suppliers and they say everything and they do it, and then it comes to the event and then suddenly you see staff members which you thought were going to be professional and they're on their phones and they're not interested in the auction. No, our staff members are really front of house. They'll never let you down, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, your team are representing the charity ultimately, aren't they? So it's it's so important. And that was my point about the team approach. I remember on the Saturday night at Crufts, you rang me and said, how's it going? Do you need anything? And I was like, right, we've done this, this, and this. Is there anything else we can do? No, you're doing everything right. And it's that reassurance, isn't it, as something that's not your specialism, to have partners there with you who are helping you out.
And that's great, yes, exactly. And, we had that conversation, and then we had the debrief afterwards. And you said to me, oh, Jane, next year we'll do this and we'll do that. I've noticed, because you will have noticed stuff being on the ground, which you needed. So it's that sort of thing where we just try to work with people. We don't, how can I put it, take over and get you out the way. No, it's your event. It's your fundraiser. It's your auction. We're just there gently giving you nudges, which we think in the right direction. And the rest is down to you. But yeah, I think on all levels, we try to make sure that we're there to help. And like I said, I get a lot of people saying that we're very easy to work with, which I think is really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Let's see if we've got any questions from the team. So guys online, in the Q&A, as we've said, let's have a look. So can you share any guidance on how many items is best for auctions? Is there a correlation, for example, between the number of gala guests, even with a silent auction that's also open to non-guests?
So I always have, I get a lot of that question. Very good question, by the way. When it comes to auction lots, people always ask me, how many should we have, and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I always say that you don't want to overpopulate it, but at the same time, you don't want to just have 10 or 20. So, on average, we'll have between 50, 60 auction lots, but we have done an event where we've had, say, 90 auction lots. And that doesn't really detract, because the way our system's built, they're all in categories. So if you click on film, art, sport, you can click and scroll and see what you want. If you know you're not going to look at an experience, you don't need to go into the experience section. So, you have 10, 7 different categories. You've got 10 in each, say 70 items, but you may only look at, let's say, 14 of them in 2 categories. So it's very simple to navigate. So I always say, you're better off having more than less, because like that George Lazenby print, which I thought would never sell, sold. So don't presume that it won't sell. I mean, I'll tell you a quick story on this one. I did an event at this gala ball recently, and it was a billionaire in the room, and we knew it was going to be some good people in the room, and we had a private tour at the Vatican.
Wow.
Uber exclusive. We put it in because I knew the audience. The charity or the organizers went, oh, I don't know about that, but then they ended up taking it out. Right? They went, no, we don't want it. Took it out. I've sat down with my partner, black tie, and they came rushing over to me 3/4 way through the night. Oh my gosh, the Vatican tour has been taken off. Well, you took it off, and we need to put it back on because the billionaire wants it. And I was like, of course he does, So never presume anything. That's one thing I would say. Never think my audience is only going to like that because that's what I like. There's all difference of opinions. So that's what I'd say on that, So open to guest, non-guest, it doesn't really change. I mean, if it's online, offline, hybrid, it works just the same.
I think as well, it's very different than an auction where you have an auctioneer. So ask any auctioneer who's done charity auctions and they will say, if I am, running an auction for a charity, I don't want more than 8 to 10 lots. People get bored.
Yeah.
Very different if it's an online auction. And like you say, you can scroll the categories you're interested in and leave those that you're not. And I think that's a massive difference between a personally delivered auction and an online one, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking at question number 2 now with regard to the live auction. So basically, what's lovely about a silent auction, the silent auction can run literally silently in the background all night. That hub screen, which I showed you, and you only saw a little snippet of it, shows you a lot more detail than what you saw there. We haven't got time for it to scroll through the whole thing, but it basically shows you really good images of the products. So if your host is on stage and it's scrolling and it shows you products, you see somebody's bid, it's great. It's a silent auction. People can bid using their mobile phones. With regards to the live auction, that is usually done at a certain section of the night, maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock. Doesn't interfere at all with the silent, but I'm going to show you something quickly here. If I can share my screen, let's have a look, see if I can get the screen up. Oh yeah, here it is. So if you notice on here, we've got a live auction section. If I click on that, when you click on a product, you get all the details of that live auction, but it disables the person to be able to bid on it. So instead of printing brochures, which are a cost, we can have you can have the live auction lots on our system as well.
Yeah,
and
they can be viewed.
Yeah, and that's a real nice touch because at least then people, before they've even turned up at the event, can scroll and then go, oh, they've got the Vatican tour in the live, for argument's sake, and they know they're going to bid on that item when they get there. What somebody has said to me, and a couple of people say, can you have it where people can bid on the live auction pre-event and for a person who's not going to event? Yes, we have got that option too. But the only negative point on that, if it's a live auction and somebody is bid and you've got a Grosvenor House Hotel, 1,000 people, and it's the Vatican, for example, if somebody bids outside of the room and they bid some crazy price for it, let's just say a crazy price, 50 grand, the only which is negative then is the auctioneer live on stage knows that the auction's already raised 50 grand outside. So if he goes on stage and says, hi, we're going to start this live auction at 50,000 because somebody else outside the room bid on it, everyone's just going to be like, well, I'm not bidding on that.
Yeah.
The whole excitement of having a live auction is the bidders 2,000, 3,000, 6,000. We've got that's the whole. So we can do both options to enable people to bid or not, but that's down to your preference and we leave that to you.
Okay, brilliant. So then we've got one here about, can it be done through social media or just the charity website? I'm not sure the direction of that, whether it's talking about promotion or the actual running of it. The running of it, I would say, has to go through the platform, doesn't it? Because that's where everything's stored.
Yeah. So everything is stored on there, but we can if you have on your through social media, you can have the URL to click to go to the platform.
Yeah.
And one thing again, what we specialize in is we have specialist URLs. So we're very unique in that. Again, it's quite different to lots of other online auction companies. We've got a lot of really good URLs which we can service for you to make it easy.
I really liked that, because it wasn't bidaid.com/Crufts 2023 Chemical Charitable Trust. It was just crufts.auction. And that was our URL. And that was really nice to have on our, promo material and stuff. So definitely.
Exactly. We've made sure that we, as a company, we've purchased loads. So we've got all these URLs, which are really unique, really good URLs, which if they're available, you can utilize, and we can talk through that if anyone wants to do that.
Okay, and then we've got Kathy saying, Jamie, can your team also run a live auction?
That's a good question. Yes, we don't do it per se by, we don't really advertise we do it, but we can do it. And I have got access to auctioneers. That obviously is a little bit out of my hands, that those auctioneers aren't free. And we've got access to some of the best in the industry, and a couple of them are so happens to be my friend, my friend. So what we do there is we sort of like, if you say, yes, we want a live auctioneer, we can then direct you in the right way, or we can have a conversation with the auctioneers, which we know. And like I said, we know the best in the industry. I don't mean your local guy from Swindon who nobody knows. I mean, we got the real deal if needed. And like I said, a couple of them are my friends, so happen to be my friends. So yes, we can do that if needed. And don't ask me to do it. I've had it, Jay. I've had people say to me, I'm sat there and they're going, oh, can you come up in 10 minutes and do the live auction? And I have, and I shouldn't have said that on this. No, I can't do it. So no, I have done it. I don't do it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right, I think they're all our specific questions that have come through, but our details are here online. If you have any questions afterwards for either of us, just drop us a line. We'll be happy to kind of have a chat. And I know, Jamie, if people want to have an initial exploratory conversation with you, they can get in touch and just talk about what they're looking at and what have you.
Yeah.
But thank you everyone for joining us. Jamie, thank you so much. It's so important to have you talk us through the platform rather than me try and do it when I'm not a techie. But yeah, let's as fundraisers, think about these things. We've done lots of webinars over the last year or so where we've brought in specialist agencies, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for specialist support. We're not all good at everything. So whether it be charity auctions, media, architects, whatever it is, get that support in as a charity, and take the guidance you need. So like I say, this will be recorded and on our website in a few days' time. And thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot. Hope to hear from you soon.